Today, we're going to go through this environment I made from a few years ago and use it as an example to figure out 4 things you can use to make your environments better. Right now, I'm in my main shot, so let's pop out of this camera really quick and take a look at the entire scene. So it's a fairly simple scene. All it is just a back alleyway. If we pull out, then you can see it's not too much more than just a one lane alley. Like there's an alley that goes to the back here that's not too fleshed out. There's one that goes here that's not too fleshed out because we know that this is our main shot right here. So if we want to break down how this scene actually works, it's fairly simple. The scene is very simply constructed. If we go over here, I have it broken down into different sections. So let's go ahead and take it back to its bare bones. So I've hidden everything in the scene that is not just the bare bones, so we can take a look at what this scene is comprised of, how it's built, and we can build off of it from there. So if we take a look at the scene, it's fairly simple, right? So like all we have is a couple of blank walls, a couple of fire escapes, a couple windows, a couple of things sitting on top of the windows. And if we go over here, these are all the components that make this scene up. It's really not a lot. So one of the things I want to reinforce and how we break down scenes is when you're planning your scenes, try to break it down into core pieces that can be interchanged. So let's take an example here. Like all of these different pieces. So this door piece right here, which I can move over a little bit. This is cutting into this. All these pieces are the exact same size. So if I wanted to build, so if I go over here, if I wanted to build out this wall, uh, they're all snapped to a grid. So I just have them set to 5 at the moment, but like I said, it's a 10. I can set it to whatever, as long as it's increments of 5 to 10. Uh, and I say I wanted to extend this wall this way, I can grab everything that is above it. Oh, grab everything that is above it, and I can just rotate it 90 and bring it up to where the other one is. And as long as I have everything still snapped, boom, I can just continue that wall as far as I want out, or make any variations to the wall. Another example is if I have something like this and I have all of my UVs consistent, I can cut into this one. I can make this one first. I can have my base wall, then I can cut into this one and make just a cut into it and inset a new mesh. So for example, what I did in Maya is all I did was I, again, started with just this blank mesh right here. And when I made this window piece, all I did was I cut into it about a foot on either side where I thought my window should be reasonably. And then I made a window mesh that I can just input into this or overlay on top. And then I kind of carried that philosophy around where, like, if I wanted a garage door, it is the exact same. I knew that I knew that this mesh right here was going to be about 2 by 2 meters. So I knew that I had a rough approximation of how big a garage door is. Then I could get the height out of it. I could get the rough shape that I wanted out of it. And I can continue that correlation across to like my ladder shapes where I know that this is 2 by 2 meters, then I can add in my ladders and my fire escapes where I can always snap to this. I can always snap to the same size. It'll always be the same height, etc., etc. As long as I stay consistent with my sizes and stay consistent with what it is that I'm doing, you can lay out a complex looking environment in almost no time. All right, so let's pop the set dressing in really quick. So I'm going to throw the set dressing in just so I can focus on a key element that is using what's called detail layering, right? So when you input details into your scene, one of the things that you want to do is you don't want to just throw details everywhere. If you throw details across an entire scene, for example, something like this, you'll get a situation where like the trash trash is everywhere and that's all you're seeing. You're just seeing trash, you're just seeing noise. And what you want to do is you want to condense your details into a smaller location, but then layer those details in a way that makes sense. So you have a base shape. For example, I have these rubble piles, and then on top of those rubble piles I have I have trash bags and I have other things. And then I have smaller details like these boxes are sitting on top. And then when we get to the foliage layer, you'll see more of the third layer. Um, but I really wanted to put things in a reason. You want to put things in a reasonable spot where they would be, but also condensing your shapes into groupings. So for example, if I zoom out just a little bit, you see that all of my large groupings are, or all of my shapes are in groupings. So like right here, it's all condensed to right here. If you look over here, it's all condensed to this little spot right here, or it's all condensed just behind here, or it's just here, all just this section right here. I leave all this, I leave a huge section of this wall blank. I leave this huge section of this wall blank. Like it's for a visual interest, so you don't, you have something that can guide your eye through the scene. You have something that can, you have like a dynamic change across the entire environment. All right, so if we put the foliage into the scene, then that kind of carries across the same idea. So you continue this idea of creating pockets. So for example, I leave sections in the center of this area that has nothing on it. Maybe it's like a footpath or whatever, but I'm continuing this idea of just a radial around the different sections of where I have highlights of interest. So like over here, that's where the foliage gets really tall and it kind of tapers out a little bit until you get to a section in the center where there's nothing there. And then again, so like tall sections here, you have tall sections here, and then if we go around, like you'll see that it kind of continues that trend where as it goes up, there's a visual piece of interest right here where there is something that's cascading out, but then this wall is blank all around it. There's a big piece of negative space right here. If you're not familiar with that term negative space, what negative space is it's the space between spaces, right? It's the things that are areas of rest between two areas of interest or two or more areas of interest. One of the things you'll see a lot of times is that in things like foliage art or in things like drawing or whatever, you'll see negative space used a lot in representation to create space and depth. If you ever look at and study how a tree grows, trees are actually they look full and dense, but they're not really. Something that you have to do to make a tree feel real is which feels very counterintuitive, is you have to add in massive amounts of areas of rest and then add kind of shape to the branches that naturally are going to add more areas of rest. So really what makes a tree feel real is rest. It's not packing detail in, but it's packing negative space, if that makes sense. It's counterintuitive thinking. So that's kind of one of the ways to approach an environment is not when you're adding detail into an environment, it's not, hey, let me add all this detail in, but where can I add my areas of rest in so that when the observer is looking at it, we can guide them with the detail rather than, oh well, there's a path here so they must go there. Well, kind of. It's you have to think about it in the opposite way, in that how can I use detail in areas, or how can I use my areas of rest as focal points, or how can I use my detail to guide the viewer to different areas of rest, if that makes sense. All right, we're back here at the main shot that we were at the beginning of the video, and we're going to talk a little bit about all the things kind of together and why this composition works. One of the things we talked about is we isolated our areas of high detail. So we have the high detail radiating out, we have areas of rest, we have different elements that are driving your eye throughout the entire scene. So for example, we have different sight lines, we have different color contrast, we have different ways that the scene is guiding the observer. So for example, we have this guiding line that's coming through here. It comes in, directs the eye up to here, which is being corroborated with the direction of the light. So we have this line of sight, which is being helped by the detail layer. We come in this line of sight, and then we have this area again of high contrast, of low detail, in being guided by high detail, and then a low detail again. So it's coming, our eye will come in, come up to this light, come back around, and then we have an area of low detail again that will come back down and then circle your eye through the entire scene. And we can carry this mentality kind of across not just one shot, but multiple shots in the entire thing. So that's if we go to shot 3, we can continue that same philosophy where we have, an area of high detail right here. We have an area of high detail right here at the bottom right of the screen, middle frame of the screen. But then our low detail areas, if we start here in the bottom left, it will follow the same path that we just followed in the last scene, kind of go around and then to this detail area and come up. And then we have, it could go out this way, which is not ideal, but then we have same areas of low detail right here, same areas of low detail we talked about earlier before, guiding lines that bring you back in. And a guiding line that brings you back in. We have a lot of different guiding lines that can dictate you back to this region of the screen that all corroborate with those different philosophies we just talked about. Let's go to a more complicated shot. So let's go here. So this is not a shot that I used in my final scene, but it's something that kind of also reinforces the same idea. If we just throw the camera into a random spot, then we can really look at how these ideas are working in cooperation with each other. So we have, again, a key guiding line. We have our different contrast layers. So we have our big white door frame right here. We have our white wall. We have our high detail that's kind of silhouetting the shot in the forefront. We have the low detail. We have the high detail all right here that's layered out from the high detail layer, and then it's all driving you back into the center section right here, right where it says do not enter. If we go back to our main shot, if you just carry those 4 philosophies around, which is breaking your scenes down to a more manageable process, using negative space to drive your scene, layering your detail in an appropriate and proper way, and then using contrast, whether it's detail layering contrast, color contrast, lighting contrast, to drive the viewer, you can create incredibly successful scenes out of barely anything at all. This entire scene in totality is only using about, I think it was 40 different objects. By that I'm counting decals, things I got from Megascans. I think in totality there is only about 40 different objects in this entire scene that encompasses all of it, and you can get a very dynamic image with very small amounts of things just by following simple design principles. And that's all I got for this one. If you liked it, hit a like below. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to put it in the comments. I've got a lot more coming. I've got a lot more tutorials, short form or content like this. I've got longer form content that goes over more complex ideas. An entire tutorial series in the works. A bunch more things on like texel density, UVing for games, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the pipeline. So if you want to see more of it, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. All right, have a good one.